Greetings, everyone. Hello, everyone, dear authors and invited guests. Welcome to Technical Session 8C. Myself, Karthik Bharadwaj, and this session would be moderated by me. On behalf of Global Knowledge Research Foundation, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the 9th International Congress on Information and Communication Technology, ICICT 2024, London, UK. The 9th edition of the conference is being organized in a hybrid mode. The physical event was organized in London, UK on 19th and 20th February 2024, and the virtual event is being held through Zoom today and tomorrow, that is 21st and 22nd February 2024. I hope you will enjoy the knowledgeable and interactive session throughout the day. In this session, we have 7 presentations. Each presenter will be given 12 minutes for their presentation and 2 minutes for their question answer round. On 10 minutes, I will raise a gentle reminder. There is another request to all the participants to stay connected till the closing remark. If you have any query or update, you can inform it to me in the chat box. Now let's proceed. Let me introduce you with the today's session chair, Professor Silvia Moreno, researcher professor. Professor Silvia Moreno is systems engineer. He has done his master and doctorate in system and computer engineering with emphasis on software development with depth in artificial intelligence and digital image processing. Good personal relationships, adaptability to change, and continuous and persistent learning. Ma'am, kindly address our participants.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here. The opening remarks? Okay, give me a second. Well, greetings. Welcome to the 9th International Congress on Information and Communication Technology. In our globalized world, we rely each day more on information systems to support industry and our everyday lives. It is like this that emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, robotics, IoT, blockchain, and others become an ever-growing field, and new methods and applications for these technologies appear every day. In this session, cutting-edge works will be presented that provide solutions to worldwide concerns, carried out with the rigor that the scientific community demands. I hope that my observations contribute to more in-depth research and to generate innovations that improve our world.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to introduce you to the next session chair, Dr. Amita Sharma, Assistant Professor, Selection Grade, CSNIT, IIS, Deemed to be University, Jaipur, India. Dr. Amita is a Senior Assistant Professor in Department of Computer Science and IT at the IIS University. She has more than 13 years of teaching experience. Her area of interest includes software engineering, network and security, data mining, and knowledge discovery, database system, web services, Vedic science, and modern theories. Ma'am, kindly address our participants.
Thank you so much. I hope I'm audible to you. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay. I would like to thank GR Foundation for giving such a wonderful opportunity to interact with the international scholars. And definitely this session would be a knowledge gaining session for me itself. And also I would like to share my thoughts with these young researchers. And let's make this session a wonderful session. All the best.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we are moving to the first presentation. For the first presentation, I would like to call Mohammed Sanid bin Hussein for the paper title G8 Phase Classification from SEMG in Multiple Locomotion Mode using Deep Learning. Sir, you can proceed with your presentation.
Hello. So can you enable the screen
So now
sharing?
you can share your screen.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Your screen
Hello?
is visible to us.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hello, I'm Sanjit bin Hussein. So I'm a 5th-year PhD student. I'm doing my PhD in computer engineering at University of Central Florida. So today I'm going to discuss about the work like how to classify gate phase using surface EMG sensor in multiple locomotion mode. And to achieve this, we will use deep learning. First of all, we have to understand like what is gait. Suppose when someone walks, so this is the lower extremity of a person. So that person is like striking his heel in there. So this is the start of a gait cycle. And then when the subject will work, there will be distinct gait phases. And after all those phases, and there will be another heel strike for that left foot. So from this first heel strike to last heel strike, so this is called a one gait cycle. And if you see this image, you can see that like there are like distinct phases on those gait cycle, and classifying those distinct phases is important. It's important in like controlling prosthetics. So suppose this is suppose like there are different phases, and if you want to control these prosthetics proactively, then those different phases may help to achieve this goal. So that's why classifying these gait phases is important for controlling prosthetics. And then also assessment of the patients. So based on the duration of different gait phases, then a clinician can like assess the patient. So there are like a lot more application of that, but I'm just explaining this too. And how we are going to like classify the gait cycle, or get the segment the gait cycle, and how we can achieve that. Typically with the motion capture system with lot of cameras and also markers, we can achieve that goal of the gait phase classification. But the problem is this method is very expensive, and like this is contained only on a specific lab environment. So that's why wearable sensors can be a good solution. So in this case, we are just using EMG sensors. So what is EMG sensors? EMG sensors is like getting the muscle activity of a specific muscle, and we will use this EMG sensor to try to classify the gait, because the activation of a specific muscle is very highly correlated with those gait phases. So that's why we are using EMGs as the input. Okay, so for the problem statement, as I have mentioned earlier, we have 9 EMG sensors, and we are trying to classify different phases of the gait. In this case, we have like 3 locomotion mode: walk, upstairs, and downstairs. And for each of the locomotion mode, there are different phases of the gait. So we will try to classify this, where our input is EMG, and how we are going to achieve this. We will use deep learning model to accomplish this. Next, like what is the dataset we have used? We have utilized a very recent public dataset. In that dataset, we have total 40 subjects, 30 males and 10 females. And we collected they collected 9 muscle EMG data from the 9 muscles of the left leg. And also there are 3 locomotion mode, as I have mentioned already. First one is walking. So for the walking, first one is heel strike, and then maximum stance flexion. So between this time, or between this step, this is status 1, or you can say class 1 for our algorithm. Then in the same way, from the maximum stance the flexion to maximum stance extension, this is status 2. So in this way, we segment the walking into 5 specific gait phases. And then we have upstairs, and for the upstairs, we are using 3. And for the downstairs, we are using, basically we are using 2, because like although they have provided there are like three gait phases, but the duration between toe off and maximum swing flexion is very minimal. So that's why they combined it, and they just do it a binary classification, where the class is heel strike to toe off and toe off to heel strike. And for the proposed method, we use a very like basic transformer method, which is consisted of embedding layer, positional encoding, and multi-head attention, and so on. But we try to modify this architecture so that we may gain like some performance, improved performance. So that's why what we did, we just added a bidirectional group block in parallel to the multi-head attention and feed forward block or the encoder block of the transformer. And then we like fused those features from two encoder through a gating module. So what is the purpose of the gating module? This gating module is try to combine those two features more effectively. So for some cases, maybe transformer is working better, and for some cases, BIGRU is working better. So we just put the weight so that like overall we will get good performance with through this gating module. And then we use the decoder and then classify the gate phase. And for the comparison, we first classify all our model into three groups. First is single encoder models, and then RNN CNN models, where we combined RNN and CNN through a gating module, and then RNN and transformer models. So for the single encoder model, we have used 6, which is LSTM group. Those are very basic RNN model, and also convolutional neural network and transformer net. And then for the RNN CNN model, we just like combine those RNN model and CNN model through a gating mechanism. And in this way, we get 4 models. And for the RNN transformer model, we just combined RNN model and with the transformer through the gating mechanism. And between among all these models, the BIGRU transformer net is our like proposed method. Now for the evaluation, we have do five-fold cross validation. So if you remember, we have like total 40 subjects. So we use 35 subjects for training and rest 5 subjects for testing. So in this way, our model is generalizing on the unseen subjects, which is like valid approach. So if you just like include the sum of the test data in the training, the accuracy may increases, which will be like very misleading. So that's why we do this way, leave one subject cross validation. And for the evaluation metrics, those are like very standard metrics that for the classification, like accuracy, precision, recall, and F1 score. And for the results, we have to like train different model for different locomotion mode because the class number is different. And in this way, first I will talk about for the walking trial, what's our accuracy. So for the walking trial, our proposed model is not working good compared to the BiLSTM net. So in this case, BiLSTM is actually superior to other model. Then for the downstairs, our proposed model is working better than other methods. And for the upstairs, also our proposed method is working better. So you see, like across different locomotion mode, there is some generalization issues of our model. So that's why we just take average and want to see overall which model is working better. So in that case, when I take all the average, our proposed method is working better than all other single model. So that's how we like come up with this model, which is superior to others. And then, as you remember, we have like 3 different model group. So single encoder, RNN CNN model, and RNN transformer model. So we just like take the average of all those model of the group and see which group of the model is working. So when we use the single encoder model, the result is okay. Then when we try to combine 2 models through the gating mechanism, we see a like huge performance boost. And among the RNN, CNN, and RNN transformer model, overall, the RNN transformer model is working slightly better in all the cases except in the precision. And also, like this is the confusion metrics for walking data. We have seen that our model is performing almost good in all the classes. It's not just like doing good in single classes and doing worse in other classes. So overall, it's good. And for the upstairs, it's also good. And for the downstairs, good. And limitation is like, the only main problem is the generalization issue. So we can just use a single model for working, and another model for downstairs. So that's one of the limitation, generalization issues across different locomotion mode. So we have to come up with a model which generalize well uh, for all locomotion mode. And for that case, I think like ensemble method can be a good approach where we will combine 2 or 3 good model, and then our we can able to improve the overall results. Thank you, everyone. So if you have any question, I can take the question.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Is there some previous work in this topic? And if there is, how do you compare your results with that previous work?
So basically, most of the previous work is like on the ground walking, level ground walking, not like stair or slope. So that's one of the factor that we are trying to achieve this in a like we have achieved this through a like in different locomotion mode, not just level ground walking. So who in which like most of the people work on the level ground walking. And for the models comparison, we use like very basics model like LSTM group by LSTM and by group. So in this way, like we were able to beat this model, but it's true that we didn't compare other directly because the data set is different, maybe algorithm is different. So that's why we just compare with our method. There's the reason. And that this public data set is new and there is not much publication. So that's why it's difficult to compare directly.
Yes, I'll first like to congratulate. It was really a good presentation, and
Thank
the
you.
idea you have presented is very well understandable. Only question is when we are comparing so many models, in this
Okay.
scenario where you have putting this slide, you can see the accuracy or precision or recall is very closely related. There is no vast difference between these models. Maybe if you perform the same model on some different data set, the result may be different. Definitely, the result will vary. So by
Yeah.
landing to this particular model will not only justify that this model best fit for this kind of data. So that is why the comparison with the existing studies are important, so that you can turn down to a generalized model that can be applied on same kind of data sets. And
I agree with that.
one my question, one question which I have in my mind, is there a difference between a female or a male movement of uh, or walk? Is there
Working.
any
Yeah,
difference?
there should be, but like we are not investigating this. So like there should be many papers citing the difference between like male and female walking. So I think you can find it in the Google Scholar. There
Okay,
should be
thank you.
difference because even like not the male and female. So there are 40 subjects. Those 40 subjects will work differently. So there is a big
So
divergence.
that means again
Big
it is more subject specific study.
Yeah, subject specific, but our model, these results is based on the unseen subjects. So
Okay.
this is generalized model, not like I'm trying to use the data of testing data in the training, then my model is working better. It's not like the case. So we are just using 35 subjects and testing on rest of the 5 subjects, which the model did not see. So that's why we ensure that, okay, this is proper approach of validation, not just
Okay.
like memorizing the data of a specific subject.
That means this could further be taken to a specific subject as well. This research can further lead to a specific subject, and then you can get more interesting results.
Uh, so uh, you're saying like if we use the specific
A
subjects in
specific
the training?
subject, and then definitely you will get some more interesting results. This is one of the
Yeah,
suggestions.
okay.
You
Yeah,
can, it is up
okay.
to you
Great.
whether you want to continue or not. That's all from
Okay,
my side.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am and sir. Now we are moving forward to the next presentation. For the next presentation, I would like to call Pawan Sharma for the paper title Hardware Accelerator for Classification of Thoracic Disorder, a Survey. Sir, you can proceed with your presentation. I think so there is some network issue on their side. Let's move forward to the next presentation. For the next presentation, I would like to call Brian LC for the paper title Neutralic Application for Dairy Cattle Diet Formulation. Sir, you can start with your presentation.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
I'm
you,
going to
sir.
present to my screen now. Okay, 1 minute. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Maia, and I'm going to introduce you the article Nutralac, application for dairy cattle diet formulation. Our team is multidisciplinary. We have students and professors from the fields of veterinary medicine and computer science. Well, the producers should face difficulties due to the high production costs, especially regarding to animal feed. Thus, the profit margins become slim. Yeah. And animal nutrition is directly related to the animal performance, and it is responsible for by 40% to 60% of the variable costs in the production systems. Furthermore, nutrition directly impacts the minimization of nutrient excretion or emission of pollution gases. Hence, it contributes to the sustainability in the dairy chain. Yeah. For this purpose, the exact technology of the nutritional requirements of the herd and the detailed characterization of the nutritional value of the food available in the farm are fundamental information. This allows adequate formulation of diets considering the technical, economic, and environmental factor. Most of the available resources for formulating diets for dairy cattle are paid and present content with a more technical focus. So these features makes difficult the understanding and execution of diets within the daily life of the rural producer. Well, in this way, Nutralac application is designed to be intuitive and readily accessible tool for estimation a minimal cost diet for dairy cattle that ensures the nutritional needs of animals. Our primary target audience is small and medium milk producers in Brazil. We expect the application allows to improve the milk production of the herd as well as the economic return while minimize the negative environment effect. Yeah. Our application database is composed by 103 of the most used foods by the producers in southeastern region of Brazil and available in the market. Then we collected the values of the following nutrients for each food: dry matter, net energy, crude protein, calcium, and phosphorus. Okay, the information was extracted from Sequebol 4.0 and BR-Cort. Moreover, we conduct a market search to obtain the prices of the foods. Regarding the animal or batch of animals, our method needs the following informations: number of animals, body weight, milk production, days in milk, days pregnant, number of lactations, production system, and breed. The software uses some fixed and variable values to calculate the nutritional constraints. These values are based on the nutrient requirements of dairy cattle guidelines in the literature on the nutrition of dairy cattle, called NRC. That's why for the calculation of requirements, we also need animal data. Once the system calculates the animal's nutritional requirements, the optimization model is defined through a series of inequalities. These inequalities ensure that the diet contains the minimum amount of each nutrient at the lowest possible cost. To facilitate the convergence of the model, we defined tolerance margins for the constraints. This practice is expected in the formulation of diets since it is difficult to find a combination that perfectly fits the requirements. Regarding calcium and phosphorus, to avoid excessive amount of calcium relative to the requirements, we define an upper limit for calcium concerning the phosphorus requirements. To ensure a properly dry matter proportion between concentrated and bulk foods, our model includes constraints that limit the proportion bulk concentrated between 70 or 30% and 55 or 45%. The optimization model was implemented in Java programming language using library SSC in literature. Subsequently, this model was integrated into a mobile application also developed in Java. Now, let's talk about some of the results of Nutrilac. In these images, you can see the screens of the Nutrilac application. In the first image, we observe the home screen of the application. In the second image, we have the screen listing the previously registered pets or animals, providing options for creation, a new diet for the animal, editing or deleting the animal, or creation a new animal. Finally, you can see the registration screen for pet or animal. Okay, now we see the display of screens related to the foods that compose a diet. In the image on the left, we have the nutritional information for each food. In the middle picture, the screen listing food grouped by types here. In the last image, the registration of the new food screen. In this slide, we observe screens related to diet creation. First, the screen for food selection. Next, we have a review of the selected foods. And the image on the right shows details of the diets formulated by system. Okay, we visited 4 farms in Brazil, in Minas Gerais, southeastern region of Brazil, to evaluate the application with the target audience. During these visits, we provided producers with instructions on how the application works and invited them to conduct initial tests, formulating diets for the herds using the application. In this image, we can see the reports generated by the application for a formulated diet. The table summary shows the pet or animal information here, amount of feed in kilogram, total values per animal or in pet, and ideal and balanced informations. Now, let's talk about some of the conclusions of this work. Experts in animal nutrition validated the results achieved in the tests performed in the application. The team visited farms to introduce and evaluate the tool's functionality with the target audience. During these visits, we formulated some diets using the foods available to the producers. Also, we have registered the application with National Institute of Industrial Property of the Brazilian Federal Government, called INPE, and received recognition in innovation competitions in Brazil. About future works, we plan to enhance the application's interface and create versions for different operation systems to facilitate the Nutrelax dissemination. Furthermore, we intend to update the calculation of nutritional requirements and the optimization model to incorporate new constraints. Now, I show you the reference for our presentation. Well, that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention.
Well,
Any questions?
yes, first I want to congratulate our presenter for that very interesting work and also for not just doing research, but also transforming that research into an innovation that can be used by the people and impact the economy. I have a question. Have you implemented some strategy to measure the impact of your diet or of your application? For example, if in those farms where you tested the application, did milk production increase or something like that? Have you thought of that strategy?
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much, Sylvia. Well, our application is in initial tests now, but the results are satisfactory for now because the producers said it's good, but it's initial tests now. So in next months, I think is we have more answers about our application. For now, it's okay, but we have more tests, I think. Sorry for my English.
It's good. Thank you.
Thank you
Yes,
so much, Sylvia.
again, I also want to congratulate you for such a wonderful innovation. It is really helpful for cattle farmers to keep track of their animals and their diet. The only question is, in my opinion, the nutrition is equally important with respect to vaccination and disease. If you are considering these two parameters for your further research, or are you willing to add those things also in your application?
Oh, yeah, I understand. In this version, no, vaccination is no.
Because somehow a disease directly influences their diet plan. Even if we are providing the healthy meal, if they are infected by some disease, the diet plan may be shifted to according to that disease.
I understand. This idea for we have discussed because
You can
as
consider it for future work. That will definitely bring a strong application and very helpful application whenever there are some certain of disease where large number of animals are affected. In those timings, these apps will definitely help farmers or the farm owners to handle the healthcare of their animals.
I understand. Yes, is very interesting idea for think about the project. Yeah.
All the best.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, son and mom. Now we are moving to the next presentation. For the next presentation, I would like to call Alex for the paper title Pharmacists Towards Preventing Prescription Misuses with a HIPAA compliant blockchain protocol. Sir, you can proceed with your presentation.
Hello, everybody. First off, thank you all for having me on behalf of both myself and my co-authors. Give me a moment to pull up the presentation here. So just a quick introduction, our motivation for this research. We are all from the United States, Boise State, Marshall University, and San Jose State University out in California. Over the last 2 decades, drug abuse in the United States has consistently and unfortunately skyrocketed, which poses a major societal issue that has grown at quite an alarming rate compared to some other systemic issues that you may see across different nations. In 2021 specifically, which is relatively recent, the United States suffered from over 100,000 fatalities due to drug overdoses, which normally a lot of these have to do with opiates. My co-author, Luke Durham, he actually has kind of a vested interest in this whole program because the Huntington, West Virginia city that he is from actually had one of the highest overdose deaths per capita in the United States for opiates, and they actually produced a documentary out there for Netflix. According to a report issued by the United States Department of Human Health and Services, illicit drug use imposes an economic burden of $193 billion every year, which is quite a substantial amount of money that could be potentially directed into other healthcare services or otherwise offload that burden into other parts of the economy. So the problem specifically that we decided to address was that the healthcare system, as it is, needs a platform that empowers individuals through patient-owned data instead of centralized application data that the doctors own and patients request, something that keeps an immutable record of prescription data and prescription transactions, and something that works towards preventing misprescriptions by doctors and providing oversight to prescription issuance. There was a 2015 study from Open Payments, which is a publicly accessible database of payments from drug companies to physicians, that revealed that around 40% of physicians were reported to have received a total of $2.4 billion in industry-related payments, which could be part of the reason that opiates are being overprescribed. And then a follow-up study that was done in 2016 by the National Safety Council found that 99% of doctors surveyed were prescribing highly addictive opiates for longer than the 3-day period that the Center for Disease Control and Prevention recommends. So our particular contributions to help solve this issue are the pharmacist system as a whole, which is designed to be a HIPAA-compliant prescription tracking blockchain system, a novel consensus protocol called proof of sharding, and then we implemented and experimented tests for scalability and robustness. In regards to related work, we are, of course, building off of foundations that those that came before us, which in this case is VigilRx. That was the direct work that was done at the research program at Boise State that came the year before us, actually, which was built on top of Ethereum and was a patient-centric solution with focusing on interoperability between different parties for prescription tracking. There's OpTrack, which is a decentralized application that was supposed to enhance opioid tracking distribution. FHIRC chain, which is the architecture for prescription tracking network. Essentially, they built a network that served as an architecture to track prescriptions. And then MedRec, which focused on smart contracts for different stakeholders and a record system for medical records. There are also programs like ANSEAL and Accord, which handle electronic health records, or EHRs, which is kind of an adjacent field, but not exactly what we're focusing on. So in regards to some background, for those of you who aren't in the United States, we do need to talk about HIPAA protocols and what HIPAA is. HIPAA is the Health Insurance Portable Accountability. And essentially that is the United States government's federal regulations for private health information and how your information or your health information is handled. So the covered entities specifically by this are health plans, healthcare clearinghouses, healthcare providers, and anybody who electronically manages healthcare information. So this is across the board. It's just very tight and very restrictive on what can be accessed, what can be shared, what can't be shared, and how you share the information. So in regards to consensus mechanisms, you've probably heard of blockchain, which handles proof of work, and Ethereum, which does proof of stake. So the quorum-based consensus was actually created by IBM. That's kind of adjacent to those two. And it selects a subset of nodes across the network to participate in block validation. It can be chosen based on a variety of factors. Sometimes it's randomness, sometimes it's stake in the network, and it can tolerate, much like every other consensus protocol, 33% of faulty nodes in the network. So the solution that we decided to propose was the HIPAA design principles, a 3-party node system, and our proof of sharding protocol. We could probably spend 15 minutes talking about the HIPAA design principles in total, so I'll kind of leave this up on the screen for a moment. But these 14 principles that we created are designed to be implemented into our system so that from the ground up, we are compliant with how we share and handle sensitive patient healthcare information. So you can see under the rule side, there's different rules regarding privacy, security, and of course, encryption and transmission of data. So for a broad system overview, we have doctors and we have pharmacists. These two are authorized parties that push their own prescription algorithms to chain. So they have prescription validation algorithms, which is essentially, they have the medical training and the knowledge to prescribe data or prescribe the particular medications to the patients, and we do not. The people creating the system, we don't have any medical background. However, they do. And so they push their validation algorithms to chain. And all that is what a doctor looks at to prescribe these particular medications to a person. So it could be, for example, your age, do you have a family history of addiction? How long and how many of these types of highly addictive medications have you been prescribed? You have the quorum, you have the shards, which are essentially separated parts of the prescription validation algorithms that are pushed to patients, the patient feedback, and then the blocks being pushed to chain. We'll get into that in a second. So our system is designed to have 3 node types, and most blockchain systems only have full nodes and light nodes, which are those that have access to the entire ledger and those that kind of retrieve information from the ledger on standby. Our system has the prescriber nodes, which are the doctors who validate transactions and create prescriptions, pharmacists who also validate transactions and then who handle fulfillment and refillment transactions, and then patients who stake in the network in order to allow them to perform computations and then to authorize patient data access. And so it's important to note that the prescriber and the pharmacist are the only two that can actually go into the quorum to decide whether or not a prescription should be validated or not. So essentially we have the prescriber pool and the pharmacist pool, and then those are using the hash of the last block to enhance the efficiency of our network. So you don't have to have cross-network communication. Every single node on the network has access to the last block. They can take the hash and then they can create the quorum based off of that computation. So essentially, the proof of sharding is our major contribution in this field. And that is where the prescriber algorithm or the pharmacist algorithm is split into pieces. So say, for example, one person wants to look at the age of the person being prescribed. Do they have a family history of addiction? And is the amount of the prescription that they're being prescribed appropriate for the illness that they have? So each one of those in this case would be shard 1, 2, and 3. It's split into those different steps. And then those are assigned to patients who are staked in the network and essentially act as data retrievers and data accessors. So in this case, shard 1 would be sharded to patient 1 and shard 2 would also be sharded to patient 1. Excuse me. Shard 2 would be sharded to patient 2 and patient 1, and shard 3 would be sharded to patient 3 and patient 1. So there's this overlap of when they retrieve the data, does the data match? And that's one of the ways that we ensure that there is less malicious activity in the network. So if there is at any point a disagreement, it is automatically assigned to a third party, and that is essentially used as a tiebreaker. And so this is like where 2 of the worker nodes have a disagreement. One says maybe there is a history of addiction in the family, and one says that there's not. So clearly there's a disconnect there, and somebody is retrieving information that's not accurate, in which case that's sent to somebody else, and then they retrieve the data, and that's the tiebreaker. So in regards to our experimental evaluation for this, we focused mostly on scalability and robustness for our network. So we experimented on various stages of our transaction process, specifically the quorum formation, quorum decision, block construction, and network communication, because in a large-scale blockchain application, it's incredibly important for efficiency to be relatively paramount, or at least well-balanced amongst scalability and security. So what we did was we set up the network with 7 quorum members, and then we incrementally increased the network size from 100 to 500 nodes on the network in steps of 100 for each data recording iteration. Each of these iterations, we executed 50 transactions, and it was just a mandatory number. There wasn't necessarily a precise meaning behind that, in order to calculate the average duration of how long these transactions take across network. And then you can see in the next graph, which is actually quite interesting, we have our network size for each of the 100. We have our quorum formations, which remain relatively consistent, along with our block construction and our total network time. They do remain relatively consistent, but you can see with the network time and the quorum decision, they actually decrease slightly. And that can be attributed to the larger amount of nodes in the network, the more of the worker nodes or the patient nodes there are to shard the data out to. So the data retrieval process should be, in theory, faster. And you can kind of see that practically applied in those 2 blocks. You can also see the graph here. It's important to note that these 2 were generated at the same time, pulling from the same data. The transaction consensus remains relatively the same across the board, and then the network communication and total time increase relatively linearly, which is to be expected the more nodes that are in the network. And then for our robustness testing, which this is probably the more interesting side of things in my personal opinion, we tested for non-accurate transactions, which are essentially transactions that occur when the majority of a subquorum of patients is malicious. So when you have a doctor that separates their algorithm out to, say, a subset of 3, maybe 5 patients, and the vast majority of those patients act maliciously, and they retrieve falsified information, or they somehow falsify information and pass that back into what should be the doctor's correct decision, that would be flagged as a malicious subquorum of patients. So in our particular testing, we ran the experiments from 10 to 50% of malicious patient nodes. So we essentially poisoned our network to see how it would react. And by each iteration, we increased 10% the amount of malicious patient nodes that were active. We measured the occurrences of malicious subquorums, and then you can kind of see this in the next graph as well. At up to 30% malicious nodes, we maintain 90% accuracy. So this graph
Sorry
to
to
me is
interrupt, sir, but you have 2 minutes to conclude.
okay. You can see that at around even 50%, we still have around a 55% recurrence rate of accurate transactions for that particular individual doctor. In conclusion, we're just proposing the quorum consensus protocol, a HIPAA-compliant design, and we implemented our cases. And then in future work, you could build AI on top of this to detect false flagged transactions for negative prescriptions, and then an increase of ease of access for onboarding. Any questions?
Ma'am, any questions?
Yes, I would like to congratulate Alex for such an excellent work, and that attends to a very growing concern in our countries. I have a question. Is this system that you propose currently being used, or is there a plan to turn this into an innovation, a commercial product?
So unfortunately, at the moment, it's not currently being used. We built this for testing and kind of a proof of concept. But since the software that we implemented on, and actually the code as of right now, is available on GitHub, and the base foundation is open source, I personally do hope to build on top of this software in the future, and it is something that I want to look at going forward seriously. So it's not being used currently, but I can definitely see it being expanded upon.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Congratulations, it's really a good problem which you are looking into, and presenting such a wonderful system for handling this problem. See, there are 2-3 questions if maybe you must have presented in your presentation, but I have not understood in that way. The first thing, the platform which you have used to develop this blockchain is particularly which platform you have used to develop this?
My mistake, I actually glossed over that. So Boise State developed, one of the co-authors on our paper actually developed the initial application. We have an open source product called BlueChain, which is designed for researchers, particularly student researchers in universities, to build a blockchain easier than, say, implementing something on top of Ethereum. Since it's written entirely in Java, it's something we're all relatively familiar with if you go the computer science route in universities. So it's built to be an easier use, essentially. So we gutted the code and kind of remade it to what we needed it to be.
And one more thing, why you have not introduced the insurance as one of the client of your insurance company, or the insurance administrator as one of the node in your system?
So we did think about that initially. However, we wanted to kind of condense it down into the people who really have a say on what can be prescribed and what can't be prescribed, because insurance, of course, covers on the patient side, like paying for the medication itself and receiving the coding that essentially says, like, this person was prescribed X medication, but they're not necessarily the ones that can, when it comes to medications, authorize that this particular type of medication, whatever it may be, is appropriate for this person to have or not. that's more up to the doctor discretion and then the pharmacist for fulfilling that.
And who is going to pay for that?
Yeah.
Is this project which you are developing is funded by someone?
It is funded by the National Science Foundation for at least the research program itself was, and then of course Boise State University. So
Congratulations! Definitely, we'll see this in a real, more commercial way.
thank you.
All the best.
Thank you, ma'am and sir. Now we are moving forward to the next presentation. For the next presentation, I would like to call Mr. Cabello for the paper title Simulation and Fault Diagnostic Using IV and PV Curve Tracing. Sir, you can proceed with your presentation. Sir, you are not audible.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible to us.
Okay. So I'll be presenting simulation and fault diagnostics using IV and PV curve tracing. So what I'll be covering is the introduction, literature review, methodology, results, conclusion, and future works. So renewable energy creates far lower emissions than fossil fuels. So transitioning from fossil fuels, which has a huge impact on high emissions, to renewable energy is the key to the climate crisis we are in. So solar power products can be deployed in many sizes and configurations, and thus can be installed on building roofs or acres of field. So this provides a wide power handling capabilities from microwatts to megawatts. So it can be connected in a series configuration, parallel configuration, or the combination of both. Quality assurance involves reviewing and auditing the quality management system and procedures to certify their effectiveness and consistency. So we document and report any defects, deviations, or issues that arise during the quality assurance activities. So basically, PV arrays are considered the only fault source because on the AC side, we do have protection for overcurrent faults and ground faults. Whereas on PV side, seems like it's neglected too much. So there are three forms of defects that are found. The first one, I can say it's the environmental problem, which includes cloud movement, dust deposition, and tree shadows. Secondly, electrical issue, it's the electrical issues, which where we have faults like open circuit faults, ground faults, short circuit faults, and so forth, which will be discussed on the later slides. And then finally, we have physical defects in form of cracked panels, damaged panels, maybe due to delivery or manufacturing defects. So this research aims to highlight those faults and the fault detection on the PV system using the IV and PV curve. So in order to ensure that we have a reliable and stable operation of any PV system, an effective monitoring system is essential. Moreover, the monitoring system keeps tracks on various electricity generation indices and fault occurrence. So poor performance and high degradation of PV systems will reduce the expected power generation and, in worst case scenario, shorten the lifetime of the system. So this is a typical IV curve of a normal operating PV cell. So this graph shows a current voltage characteristics of a normal like I said, yeah, of a normal a PV system. So on the blue line, it shows that it shows the IV curve characteristics under normal operation. And then there is an MPP, which is the maximum power point. So this is the maximum operating point of the PV cell. The red line shows power versus voltage graph. Sorry. So in order to get this red line or denoted graph, you get it from the product of the short circuit current and the open circuit voltage. So if you do it from point to point, this will give you this graph. So that's why on the MPP point, it gives you the maximum power produced by that cell. So the faults that we find on the PV system are a hotspot fault where it occurs possibly due to a cell mismatch, excessive resistance, or cell deterioration, and also partial shadowing. Then partial shadowing fault, it is caused by an obstruction to the sun's irradiance in form of moving clouds, trees, and other structures as the solar panels depend on the sun's irradiance. And then we have short circuit faults. This one is when two DC conductors they short circuit one another or touch each other. Then we have ground faults where we have unintended electrical path forms between a conductor and a ground surface or a metallic component. And then we have an arc fault where a high power discharge of electricity is between the conductors. This discharge creates heat. And in a worst case scenario, it will break down the wire's insulation and trigger electrical fire. And then we have an open circuit fault. This is due to a break in the conductor so that it stops the current flow or prevents the current from passing through. And then we have diode faults. This one, it's impacted due to the diodes overheating. So under methodology, this will be done, the simulation will be done using Simulink. So on the Simulink, there are going to be 3 cases or case studies which will be focused on. The first one will be partial shading, where there are 2 scenarios, where there are 2 shaded panels and then another with 4 shaded panels. Case scenario 2 will be a module mismatch, where the specifications on one of the module doesn't correspond with the rest of the modules. And then the second scenario where 2 modules do not correspond with the other modules. The third one will be a short circuit, there will be one PV module with a short circuit and then another scenario with 2 short circuits. So all these 3 will be referenced with a system with no fault. So this is the simulation model. So this one, it's a 3x3 system where we have 3 modules in series, showing that it's a string. So it's the first 3. And then the other 3, it's the arrays. We have 3 arrays which are connected in parallel. So it's a string with 3 modules with connected in parallel, meaning they are arrays. So it's a 3x3 system. On the results, it can be shown on figure 3A that we have a low irradiance input. So the modules got bypassed. Thus, we're having a low irradiance condition. So this creates 2 maximum points, as it can be seen on the red denoted line. So this one represents 2 shaded PVs. And this has created 2 knee points. So as it can be seen, the power output has decreased. So with 4 shaded PVs, the loss, we have a significant loss, and it has created more knee points. And thus, if you do the product of these two, it gives you the power voltage graph. So with the normal one, you can see that we have a huge power produced. So with 2 shaded PVs, it created 2 knee points as well, but at the lower power produced. So it shows that the more you have shaded modules, the more losses you get on your power generation. This one shows a mismatch. So on the red line, it shows that the red line mismatch A, it's the one with one module which has a mismatch, which means it doesn't correspond with the other modules in the system. So this gives you a mismatch loss. Then with the one which is mismatch B, denoted in the yellow line, it has 2 mismatch modules. So it shows you that if you install, let's say you're designing and you install PV panels which are not matching, you're going to have a significant loss on the power that you want to produce. The third one, it shows a short circuit effect on the system. So on the blue one, it shows a system with no short circuit. And then on the yellow denoted line, it shows you with the faults, with 3 short circuit faults between 3 modules. So it shows you that this doesn't impact your current, but it impacts your voltage. And thus, in the results, it will affect your power output. And then on the red one, it shows you that, there's a fault between 2 modules. So this one has high losses or high voltage, open circuit voltage drop due to the way I simulated it. It was so severe that it gave you a huge loss, and that the open circuit voltage is high. And then when you do the multiplication with the current, it gives you the power voltage graphs as shown on figure 5B. So in conclusion, we've seen that it's essential to do an IV and PV curve, as it offers or gives you more detail on the performance on your system. So it's highly important, especially if you are installing or designing or during operation and commissioning. So this will be a huge help when we're going forward, as we are heading towards renewable systems, and we are running away from fossil fuels. So on this work, there are limitations. The huge limitations, it's labor and it's time consuming, because you need to be in the field and it takes time. So on the future works, I think a smart IV and PV curve analysis must be looked into, where it inspects on an automated, depending on on an individual's design on when for it to check the system. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, any questions?
I just have one question. In these case studies, have you considered any environmental parameters as well? The environmental fault or hotspot fault which you were discussing in the earlier part of your presentation?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't hear you clearly.
Okay. Are you now? I am audible to you. Am I audible to you?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I was saying that in the earlier part of your presentation, you talk about different kinds of faults.
Yes.
In your experiment or the case study which you have conducted, have you considered the environmental fault and the hotspot fault as well?
Oh, yeah. So, as I mentioned previously, two of the causes of hotspots, one is partial shadowing. So if you ignore partial shadowing for too long, it will create a hotspot fault, and mismatch fault as well. So if you neglect and just install any PV panel the way you want, it will create that fault as well, and it will show on your PV panel.
Okay. So it will change the results, the curve results.
Sorry?
It will change the curve result, or the curve will be planted the same way which you have simulated in your experiment?
Yeah, it will affect your results. It will affect especially the output power that you expect.
Okay. So it will definitely reduce the output power, no?
Yeah, so basically it will affect, depending on the fault, it will affect your short circuit current or your voltage open circuit. So that's when you, in fact, it would, yeah, I can say it will affect your total power output.
Okay, that's all from me.
Thank you.
Ma'am, any further questions?
Well, more than a question, a comment. This is a very interesting work that brings solutions to more environmentally friendly energy systems. It's very interesting how you evaluated the faults with the graphical, the plots of the current and the power. I would suggest that for future work, you should build an integrated system that predicts these faults, taking into account the values of current and power, and maybe use some other metrics such as the percentage of faults correctly detected by your system or something similar.
Oh, that's a great one. Thanks for the insight. I'll consider that as well. Thank you. Any more questions?
Thank you, ma'am and sir. Now we are moving to the next presentation. For next presentation, I would like to call Alan Destin for the paper title, The Use of YOLOv5 as a Malaria Detection Model for Developing World. Sir, you can proceed with your presentation.
Yes, can you allow me someone?
Dear presenter, you may proceed with your presentation.
Yes. Yes. Good evening.
Good evening,
Good evening.
sir.
Hear me?
Yes, sir, you are audible to us.
Yes, okay. Yes, good evening. I'm Alan Destin from I'm doing my master's degree of information technology in Carnegie Mellon University, Africa. Today, I'm presenting the research entitled The Use of YOLO V5 as a malaria detection model for the developing world. I'm going to take you through the background, I will state the problem and the researcher review, the methodology used for this research, and the dataset description, the results, and finally discuss make some discussion, and finally the conclusion. First of all, what is malaria? Malaria is a disease caused by a parasite called Plasmodium, and it is mostly found in tropical regions, mostly in sub-Saharan countries and other parts of the world. It comes in 5 varieties, but 4 of them are common. One is Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium malariae, Plasmodium ovale, and the 5th one, which is not mostly found in different places, is called Knowlesi. Currently, 90% of the total deaths emanate from sub-Saharan countries. These are deaths due to malaria. This is a report by WHO in 2019, and it also states that 66% of the childhood fevers in 20 sub-Saharan countries were tested for parasites. Not all childhood or all fevers are due to malaria, but the report states that 66% is the one which is counting for childhood. And among 95% of the deaths due to malaria in Africa, 2/3 are coming from children. To diagnose malaria, 2 different approaches are mainly used across the world, but one is clinical diagnosis, which relies much on the expertise of a health worker who assesses the symptoms of the patient, and from there you can determine either a patient is sick or not. And this is confirmed by a laboratory diagnosis in which a microscopist is the one who is going to examine the samples taken from the patient, and then analyze the samples, and then confirm the viability of the parasite of the infection. Now, what are challenges associated with current malaria prevalence? The first one is ineffective malaria diagnosis. In those areas, in developing countries where there are ineffective malaria diagnosis, this is backed by the inadequate training and supervisor of health workers. In these places, as I mentioned earlier, the process of diagnosing malaria requires the expertise of these people who are able to diagnose malaria based on different symptoms, different characteristics of the parasites, and all that. And this inadequacy of training and supervisor of health workers is one of the key factors affecting, promoting or leading to this malaria prevalence in these areas. And also there's shortages and stockouts of equipments to perform the tests, as I mentioned as well. To perform the test of malaria, it requires some kit, which comprises with the slide, the strips, and other materials required to prepare the samples to be assessed in the laboratory. Also, there's some patient factors. This is mentioned by WHO as well, report, which mentioned that the parasite positive fevers in the formal health sector are almost the same as those who remain untreated or treated in the informal sector. This is one of the main reasons as well, because some people decide not to go to the hospital, and others decide to be treated in an informal way without going to the hospital. Now, this research aimed at seeing how image processing techniques can be leveraged in diagnosing malaria. Using different image processing techniques, using different algorithms of image processing, we are looking at how this can be leveraged in diagnosing malaria. Also, we are looking at how an object detection model can be used to detect malaria parasite. And also, we are looking at how can a YOLO V5 model can be efficient in resource-constrained areas like Rwanda or any other African country. Some researchers has sat down and worked on this area of interest. Basically, all of them turns around at analyzing thick and thin blood smear images as a way of learning the features of malaria parasites, including the shapes, the morphology, and other characteristics that are made of malaria parasite. And then they use some traditional machine learning algorithms, such as support vector machines and others, such as random forest tree classifiers and others. And other also relied much on deep learning algorithms, which comprise one of object segmentation and classification. Here I can mention like FastRationing, MaskRationing, using UNit and others. And recently I found the object detection algorithms, including YOLO V3 and YOLO V4, which demonstrated an average precision of almost 96% of detecting a malaria parasite in a slide image. Now, why YOLO V5? YOLO V5 is as a result or as a combination of or improvement of previous YOLO V4 and V3. YOLO V5 has been made to be a lightweight architecture, and also its ability to present and detect small objects is also one of the reason giving me the possibility or the option to opt for that, because it can be able to detect parasites, as parasites are very small in slide images. And also, since this model can be applied on both thick and thin blood smears, and these are available in Rwanda and in different places of the Africa, now this YOLO V5 can be also efficient in this case. As methodology for the data set collection, we used a microscope and a camera mounted on that to capture different fields of the slide. And also I used annotator tools to annotate the parasite inside a slide image. And also we performed some pre-processing of the blood smear images, including the contrast stretching and median filtering. This was mainly to improve the visibility of the parasites in the slide image, and also applied a YOLO V5 model for parasite detection. And finally, we have evaluated the model using the mean average precision, the F1 score, the recall, and the precision as well. The data set I used is comprised of 484 images, including 52 Plasmodium falciparum, 114 vivax, 139 malaria, and 179 Plasmodium ovale. This is not balanced, but this was what we managed to collect from the field. The results shows that on original data set, the ones on which we collected without applying any other pre-processing or any other algorithm to enhance the quality, the model has shown the ability to accurately, to truly predict all the parasite at a rate of 78%, and with a mean average precision of around 82% on all the images. However, on PFs, it has shown a less performance compared to others. This is backed by the minimum availability or minimum distribution of PFs in the dataset that we used. And also on enhanced dataset, the precision seems to be reduced a bit. This was backed by these algorithms used has shown that they are removing some of the features that could help the model to accurately recognize a parasite. This is the overall precision. However, the mean average precision on enhanced dataset has been improved a bit, though as well for the PFs, still the results has been increased a bit because for PFs they're small, and then the ability of the model to recognize those small objects increased because the visibility of these PFs has been also increased. These are the images on which I applied the model. These are one of the images on which we managed to predict the region of whereby you can find the parasite. On the first image, you can find PFs with the probability of around 70, but as we saw previously, the average is around 60% for PMs as well. But comparing the PVs and POs with the remaining two, we find that for POs and PVs, there's a high confidence level of the model to recognize these parasites, because as I mentioned earlier, these parasites.
Sorry to interrupt, sir, but you have 1 minute to conclude.
Yes. Yeah. For PVs and POs, we have a data set which is really we have many images on this type of parasites. And on enhanced data set, this is the results. The PVs and POs continues to perform very well. The model continues to perform very, very well. However, on PFs and POs, the model become much more worse, because on PFs, as I said before, the algorithms of reducing the noise and everything are pulling out some features. What does this mean? The model consistently performed very well, which shows its reliability in its prediction. And also, there's a small difference in the performance, despite that there are some algorithms that have been applied on the images to enhance the quality. And also, the imbalanced data set that has been an issue for this, because for some parasites, the model doesn't perform very well because the data set is not well balanced. As conclusion, the study showcased YOLO V5's efficacy in classifying those parasites, especially Vivax and Oval. And also, the difference in staining and illumination has brought this issue of some discrepancy of the quality of the image after applying the algorithms. And also, the study found that the image enhancement techniques has a limited impact on F1 score. And also, future research could focus on optimizing deep learning algorithms, possibly integrating other versions of YOLO, such as YOLO V8 and others. Yeah, these are my references. I acknowledge the contribution of these people, Dr. Karin as my primary supervisor, and Dr. Emmanuel Twishimire and Bosco Muchacha from Rwanda Biomedical Center. Thank you. This is my address. I welcome question in this time. Thank you.
Ma'am, any questions?
Well, I have a comment. This is a very interesting work that attends to a health concern that is very important in developing countries, like Africa and South America, where I'm from. It is a very good research. And my only objection is that I think the data set is a little small. I don't know if they may be available some public data sets with more images that can be used to improve this research. And if there are not, maybe you should consider create a bigger data set and make it available to the academic community, so more innovative research can be done in this field.
Yeah, sure. Actually, as this research was mainly based on to be carried in Rwanda, these are the data that we managed to collect, and it could be for us, it was our much concern was to see the ability of this model on the dataset collected in Rwanda. But there are some public available dataset up to now.
Ma'am,
Again, I
any
want to
further questions?
congratulate. Yes, I just want to congratulate. It is really a good presentation. My question is, if we change the orientation of the image, still it is giving the same result. Have you tried in that way?
Yeah, I tried to augment this data set as a way of increasing my data set because it is really very small. Doesn't change much on the results. This is what I saw so far.
And if we reduce the number of images from the current state, the number you have targeted, then also the performance remains the same or it degrades?
When you reduce the number of images, the performance decreases.
Okay. And since you have used unbalanced data set, and if you try to balance it, either by using augmentation or any other technique, does it influence the result? Have you tried that?
I haven't tried it. But what I did was just to augment the whole data set. What I saw after augmenting the data set was quietly not different from what I was expecting.
Okay. So that way you can take this as a future work and start doing this. Instead of
Yes.
just adding some more big data set, you can start with the small data set, try to balance it. And also one thing you can do, the selection of images should be random every time when you are training your system. Then also
Yes.
you will get the different results. The training
Yeah.
technique can also be changed. If we have very limited data set, if we change the training technique, definitely the result will change and model will perform in different way.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I'll do
All
that.
the best. All the best.
Thank you, ma'am and sir. Now we are moving forward for the next presentation. I would like to call Petrova Tatiana for the paper title Slice and Dice, a corpus-based study of Russian binomials. Ma'am, you can proceed with your presentation.
Yes, hello. There's been a slight misunderstanding. Tatiana Petrova is the co-author of the paper. However, I will be giving the presentation. I hope that's all right.
Yes, ma'am, you can proceed with the presentation.
Right, of course. Let me share the screen. Just a second. Right, can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am, your screen is visible.
Ага, девочка тогда подойдет, ладно? Девочка, вот это подойдет. All right, so, okay. Hello, everyone, once again. My name is Maria. I am the student at the St. Petersburg University, and I'm glad to present the results of our study of idiomatization of Russian binomials. And I will explain what a binomial is in just a moment. However, I would like to start by saying that the process of idiomatization in a language is one of the most interesting issues in cognitive linguistics nowadays. And the definition of idiomaticity itself has different approaches, and one of them is a phraseological one. By this approach, a number of researchers mean that a collocation is considered as an idiomatic unit if its overall meaning is not equal to the sum of the meanings of its separate parts. And for example, a famous Soviet linguist, Viktor Vinogradov, he worked in this approach, and he suggested to distinguish different types of collocations according to the degree of idiomaticity, for instance, phraseological units, combinations, fusions, and cliches. However, recently, the view on the definition of idiomaticity has expanded. And according to some authors, idioms arise due to a person's ability to memorize recurring events. And we know some situations that require standard expressions, right? For instance, we can predict what words we will use during a telephone conversation, like, hello, I'm listening, could you repeat, please, etc. So by idiomaticity here, we understand the knowledge of the ability of words to form phrases. And such view goes beyond a phraseological approach and leads to the study of idiomatization as a process. And to get a more comprehensive view on the process of idiomatization, we turned to binomials. So for the first time, the definition of a binomial was given by Yakov Malkiel in 1959, and he defined binomial as the sequence of two words pertaining to the same form class placed on an identical level of syntactic hierarchy and ordinarily connected by some kind of lexical link. Well, to put it simply, the structure of a binomial consists of two words, which are always one part of speech, and between them there must be a coordinate conjunction. Usually it is a conjunction and. You can see some examples here on the slide. For example, safe and sound, first and foremost, green and blue. All of these expressions are binomials. And the way that binomials are formed, interestingly, is a universal across different languages. And you, again, on the slide can see some examples there. So not only in English language and in the Russian language there are binomials, but also in German, in French, in Spanish, even in Latin, and the list can go on and on. The class of binomials represents the whole continuum from so-called Gapex legomena, which are expressions that occur only once within a context, to idioms, which are fixed expressions in the language. And the process of binomial formation is continuous, of course, because the language is a dynamic system, and most binomials never become set expressions, they never become idioms. It is proved that in English, up to 85% of all binomials become only Gapex legomena, around 50% are set expressions, and only 1 or 2% are idioms. The study of binomials as a special type of collocations allowed us to conduct a more comprehensive analysis of the process of idiomatization. So the aim of our work was to evaluate the idiomaticity of these expressions of binomials with different frequencies. For the analysis, we've chosen 147 Russian binomials. 84 of them were chosen from the national corpus of the Russian language, and the corpus provided the list of the most frequent binomials. 63 expressions were chosen from a sub-corpus of the World Health Organization texts that was created during our study binomials in the context of a pandemic discourse in 2021. Binomials for this work were chosen from COVID-19 pandemic texts in the news section. And based on that sub-corpus, we created a list of the least frequent expressions. So they were the low frequency binomials in this group. And a few words about the methods. So there are many statistical tests that indicate how strong is the association between the words in a pair. And the most popular ones are the mutual information, or the MI, how I would call it later, and the logarithmic measure, or log likelihood, as you also can see on the slide, its formula. And they are used to calculate the degree of similarity between the words in a corpus. So let's go to the results. Two binomials had a negative mutual information values. You can see these examples on the slide. These expressions, governments and companies, and people and organizations. The values here are negative. So in this case, it means that the occurrence of these two words paired together was unexpected for the language. The MI values for other binomials were positive. And interestingly, if we go back here to the formula, we can see that it uses the observed and expected frequency in the formula. So if the observed frequency of a binomial in the corpus exceeds the expected one, we get a positive value, and thus can conclude that the appearance of the word of two words in one expression is not accidental. Here we get the opposite result. However, the data analysis also showed that the MI ranking of binomials significantly differed from the frequency rankings. You can see some examples here on the slide. So the pairs with where the words got the highest frequencies, like here you see very frequent words not only to the Russian language but also to the English: day, night, hands, legs, right, father and mother. All of them have tens of thousands of occurrences in the corpus. However, they rank they get a very low ranking in the MI score, right? You can see day and night is only on the 113th place, hands and legs 108. In this situation, it suggests that the occurrence of two very frequent words is expected. However, it is not unique for the language. It also should be noted that the MI measure assigned high scores to low frequency pairs. Again, you can see some examples on the slide, right? The expression Bill and Melinda, it arises in the corpus only one time, so it absolutely is not a frequent expression. It has a low frequency score. On the other hand, in the MI ranking, it is on the 4th place. And in this situation, we understand that the MI measure allowed us to emphasize the uniqueness of the word combination. It can be concluded that the MI measure allowed us to make a distinction between binomials that have become common in the Russian language and the binomials that have some specific features that are unique. Also, a few words about the logarithmic value. This measure emphasized the frequency of co-occurrences of words in the corpus. You can see that the ranks of the logarithmic value here is very similar to the frequency ranking, and it is contrasted with the ranks of the MI measure. Also, a comparative analysis was made, and it showed that it allowed us to determine the collocational strength of the words. What is a collocational strength? To put it simply, it is the degree of cohesion and indivisibility of the words in an expression. And I would like to give you an example, and then it will be easier to understand what I mean by a strong collocational value. So if we look at the expression day and, let me put it other way. So if we take the word day, which is quite frequent for the Russian language, combine it with the conjunction and here, and use some other noun on the place of a third word, we get 3,248 occurrences in the corpus, which is 100%, right? And that includes the occurrences of the word day with the word night, which gets, which is a very frequent binomial for the Russian language, and it is 2,166 occurrences in the corpus, which is 66% out of all of these occurrences of the first word with other second variants. So in this case, the word night has a strong collocational value, and you can see here in the table the examples of the expressions that have this high scores of the collocational strength. In conclusion, I'd like to repeat that this study was dedicated to evaluation of the idiomaticity of Russian binomials, and the obtained results showed that the process of idiomaticity is influenced by both the frequency of the entire collocation of the entire expression and the frequency of the words that make it up. So the high frequency of the binomial itself, the frequency of words of its components, and the high collocational strength, all this is a statistical evidence of idiomaticity. And these measures indicate that the pair is already included in the process of idiomatization. That is all that I wanted to say. Here are some references for my work, and thank you for your attention. I will be glad to answer some questions if you have them.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions?
Yes, this is a very interesting work that advances the language processing and analysis. And my question is, this methodology that you propose can be used to give other languages, and if that's the case, how would it vary? What would be different to apply it to a different language?
Well, thank you for the question. That's a very interesting thing to even think about, because there are some works that indicate that binomials are present in other languages. So definitely this construction, this combination of words, syntactic structure, it can be, and it is studied in other languages. I have never thought about applying the same approach to other languages, although I would believe that it is possible. However, I have never met any other works that would talk about the process of idiomatization of binomials, but I think it's possible.
Thank you.
Ma'am, any other questions?
Yes, congratulations for such a wonderful presentation. Again, the same question, if it could be applied to some other language, then mixture of the language can also be used for the further studies. Just a suggestion for you.
Yes, I agree. Thank you very much for the suggestion.
Because in generally social platform, like as we are from India, we generally prefer using mix of Hindi and English languages. So when we want to analyze such content, then definitely we need some technology or methodology that can use the mixture of the language rather than just focusing a single language.
Right, I absolutely agree with you. It's definitely, it would definitely be a very interesting thing even for us to compare, for example, the Russian language and the English one, and to do the comparative analysis about that. Thank you.
All the best.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Now we are moving forward to the next presentation. I would like to call Pawan Sharma for the paper title Hardware Accelerator for Classification of Thoracic Disorder, a Survey. Sir, you can proceed with your presentation. I think so, sir is not having, sir is having some network issue. Let's move forward to the closing remark. I sincerely thank our authors for their excellent presentation and contribution in this session, and all our participants for being a part of this international conference. I hope this session was informative enough. We, on behalf of the whole team, thank you for your support during this 9th version and all the previous 8th version of the conference. We'll be happy to have you in the 10th version in 2025. All the presenters will be getting their digital certificates through email within 2 working days. Further, all the paper have already forwarded to the Springer. The publication will be live within 6 months. Kindly cooperate with the team of ICICT 2024. I also thank our session chair, Dr. Sylvia, for chairing the session. This is the token of appreciation from Team ICICT 2024 and GR Foundation and partners for chairing the session. Ma'am, kindly address our participants.
Yes, thank you. It was an honor to be a chair of this session. And today we have heard very interesting and innovative works on fields such as health, agriculture, energy, and linguistics. The quality of the presentations has shown the excellence of the researchers, the rigor of their academic work, and their constant effort to contribute with solutions to worldwide concerns. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience with us today. We hope to see more of your work in the next edition of the International Congress on Information and Communication Technology. And thank you for the opportunity of being a chair today.
Thank you, ma'am. I would love to extend my gratitude to our next session chair, Dr. Amita Sharma. Dr. Amita Sharma, this is the token of appreciation from Team ICICT and Global Knowledge Research Foundation and partners for chairing the session. Ma'am, kindly address our participants.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Karthik. It was really a wonderful session. As already this other session chair told that there was a variety of research which we have taken in this session. I myself has increased the knowledge, as well as it was a wonderful platform where we have shared our knowledge as well as the idea which has been transformed into more commercial things. Definitely we'll see the ideas presented over in a business perspective, considering the commercial aspect. And I'll again congratulate each and every presenter that you have chosen the right platform to present your idea. All the best for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I request everyone to turn on their cameras for a quick virtual snapshot. I request everyone to kindly turn on their cameras for a quick virtual snapshot. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Take care. Stay connected.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. It was a wonderful session. Thank you, everyone.